Hey everybody, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with another Captain Skills update for patch 0.6.0. You can see here by the grosser curve first on screen that we are going to be talking about German battleship skills. And really, gosh, there's only one build that I really consider viable, but we've got different things that can kind of play around with it. But I'm going to go ahead and give you two other builds that, if you really want to mess around with them, I guess. Obviously, that build that we're going to be talking the most about is going to be the secondary build. And as with my previous videos on Captain Skills for this patch, there are so many different viable options that really you guys shouldn't feel obligated to follow these builds verbatim. Tweak them to whatever skill set you have and whichever ones you need to kind of make up for. You know, if you're not real aware of your surroundings and you need the extra torpedo warning, don't hesitate to throw vigilance in there in addition to your hydro. You know, don't feel obligated that you have to follow these builds verbatim. There are so many viable different ways to build these. These are just my opinions on what I'm going to personally run. And rather than me continue to blabber on about it, let's get Gunther Heinz Captain Skills up here and we will begin talking about them. Now, obviously, the one that I'm going to be running is that secondary build. That's what the German battleships are known for. And this is just kind of my idea as to the reasons why, I'm running this build and why I'm running the certain captain skills. For the secondary build, we're going to start off with the preventative maintenance for reducing the incapacitation of modules. Now, many of you are going to point out that this does not impact your secondaries or anti-aircraft guns. True. However, by running preventative maintenance, I can drop main armaments mod 1 from the first slot in the upgrades and switch it to auxiliary module mod 1, and it increases the health of your secondaries and your AA guns by 100%. Thus, by taking preventative maintenance and dropping main armaments mod 1, you do actually improve the health of your secondaries. Now, really, the secondaries themselves don't take a whole lot of damage on German battleships, but it's nice to not lose all of my AA every single time something hits the ship. So that's really the reason why I'm taking preventative maintenance. In the second slot, I don't have it selected here on this captain, but I would recommend taking Adrenaline Rush first. Now, I don't know with this patch that just came out yesterday if that is going to fix the problem that originally had. It says it impacts all types of armament. However, Wargaming has admitted that the secondaries don't respond to this, the AA doesn't respond to this, and they are working on fixing that. And I'm not sure if that's been fixed yet. However, they are in the process of fixing it, so eventually this will actually apply to your secondaries. And Adrenaline Rush is for every hit point, 1% of hit point you lose, you will gain a reduction of 0.2% on the reload time of them. So for, instance, at 50% of your hit points lost, if you lost half your hit points, you'll have a 10% reduction in the reload, if I did my math right on that. Don't quote me on the actual numbers. It might be way less than that. Math is not my strong suit. Anyway, no matter how you cut it, you are going to see a reduction in the time that it takes for things to reload, and that's why I run Adrenaline Rush there. From there, I'm going to jump up, and I'm going to recommend you take either Basic Firing Training or Superintendent. Now, we kind of got into a bit of a discussion about this on Shoot the Red Ships when we were talking about the secondary build on the German battleships. Superintendent, yeah, it only matters if you actually get to that last consumable. For a lot of people, if you're dying real early in matches, Superintendent might be 3 wasted points. Take Basic Firing Training. You're going to need both. In my opinion, you're going to need both eventually anyway. Me, I have a tendency to last just a little bit longer before I die in some matches. And it is nice to have that extra heal. So for me, I'm taking that extra heal and hydro for that fact that once you get to tier 8 and above, you start getting hydro. Having that extra consumable does help at the later stages of the game if it gets there. The other viable skill that you could throw in here is Vigilance. Again, if you're somebody who takes a lot of torpedo damage, which on these upper tier battleships, that's not that uncommon, maybe swap Superintendent for Vigilance if that will help you out some. Don't play hard and fast with these builds, but this is just what I'm running. From there, I'm going to jump down to Advanced Firing Training first. that's going to increase the range at which our secondaries are going to fire. By the way, basic firing training reduces the reload time of the secondaries. And then I'm going to jump over to manual fire control for secondaries. That's pretty obvious. That 60% reduction in dispersion in the main battery shells is really important for secondary build captains. And if you're not aware, when you select this, you do need to actually hold the left control and mouse click on the target in order for your secondaries to engage a target. If you weren't aware of that, you'll be going, why aren't my secondaries firing? It's in range. That's clearly able to shoot at them. You gotta press and hold the left control and click on them like you would if you were going to select aircraft to shoot them down. That will cause them to then fire, but you can only target one target at a time, so keep that in mind. The dispersion reduction is totally worth the loss of the automatic firing of the secondaries. From there, I would definitely step back down and pick up whatever your second tier 3 skill is, whether that's basic firing training if you didn't pick it up the first time, superintendent, vigilance, your call. Honorable mention here, basics of survivability. If you really want to throw in just a little bit extra survivability on the cooldowns for the, extinguishing of fires and floods or repairing of incapacitated modules, that's your skill. Personally, I would much rather have high alert up here, but to each their own. And the last 2 points, I'm probably going to end up spending on expert marksman, although high alert certainly does have its certain advantages. Now, expert marksman versus high alert. In my opinion, again, this is my opinion, it's not hard and fact, I much prefer the ability of these turrets to traverse quicker. I have found that when you get closer to targets, being able to move the turrets while the target is sailing past you does allow you much better control over where those shells are going to impact. Now, it is a valid point that the turrets do turn really quick, especially on like Bismarck and Tirpitz, and that adding expert marksman doesn't really make a huge difference. Yeah, that little extra bit, though, seems to always make the difference. And if nothing else, it helps you track down those broadside targets a little bit more, and it just opens up a wider profile of targets to which you can shoot at. Now, if you're somebody who is kind of hard on your damage control party, high alert is certainly also another really good option at this tier. It does reduce the time it takes for the damage control party to consumable to come back up by 10%. That can certainly be of benefit. I'm personally going to run expert marksman. So my final build, when my 19th point comes in here in 200 and call it 60,000 XP, it's going to be preventative maintenance, expert marksman, adrenaline rush, basic firing training, superintendent, advanced firing training, manual fire control for secondaries. Now, that's not the only way to do secondaries. That's just the way that I feel that it's actually going to work out the best. Certainly, these 3 skills, basic and advanced firing training, and manual fire control secondaries are necessary for a secondary build. Let's talk about a slight modification of this build. And that is going to be an anti-aircraft build. Now, somebody just rolled their eyes. Bear with me for a moment. The one thing we've not seen somebody really build is a German battleship for anti-aircraft duty. And I think you can get some pretty trollish AA with a German battleship because all of your anti-aircraft battery is concentrated in the long-range dual-purpose guns. Manual fire control for AA is going to double the DPS of your long range, those 85mm and above secondaries that work as AA guns. And I think that build, literally moving from manual fire control for secondaries, manual fire control for AA, could have some interesting results against aircraft. I've not actually tested it. Maybe someday I'll get to testing it on the public test server, but just want to throw that out there for the AA build. Again, nothing has really changed from the secondary build aside from moving manual fire control for secondaries, manual fire control for AA. So that's the AA build. This last build is going to be the ultimate survivability build. You're literally giving up everything except for the range on your secondaries in this build. And it's going to start off with preventative maintenance. It's going to come down here to high alert. And it's going to go to superintendent. And then it's going to go to fire prevention, which reduces the risk of fire by 10%, but it also reduces the number of fire sources on a ship from 4 to 3. And the two that it combines are the middle two. And from people I've talked to, this is actually a really powerful tool to keep your ship alive longer when it comes to all that HE spam that's just lighting you on fire every other salvo, because it combines the middle two, which are the two most commonly hit fire points. And in doing so, you actually do cut down on the fire damage that you do take in the long run. So fire prevention there will be your first tier 4 skill. The next one that I would recommend, and we can kind of play this back and forth, you can either get the secondaries or the AA. Certainly in a survivability mode, I would recommend the manual fire control for AA over manual fire control for secondaries, simply because carriers have their way with German battleships. And again, going back to what I said with the AA build thing, I think that if you ran manual fire control for AA on a German battleship, the amount of long-range DPS that you would have in your AA would be enough to make them think twice about coming after you. From manual fire control for AA, I would probably pick up advanced firing training, and that's going to push your secondary range out to that 10.6 with the flag. It's going to increase the range of your anti-aircraft bubble. That's just going to help you with survivability by making sure aircraft don't get close, but it's also going to give you enough secondary range that you do at least deter most destroyers that want to come close, even though you don't have that 60% reduction in dispersion from manual fire control for secondaries if you've taken the manual fire control for AA. And of course, the last one then is going to be priority target, because you've only got 1 point left to spend, and really none of these other ones. I mean, you can make a case for a direction center for catapult aircraft, which gives you an additional catapult fighter in the air. It does reduce their airspeed. I've not played with this skill, but I personally find on battleships with the huge nerf in the flight time of your aircraft that this skill is really... It just doesn't feel like it's going to work that well. The aircraft are only up for 90 seconds. You've got 2 of them. Do they target the same group and cause panic? The DPS from a catapult fighter just isn't high enough to justify having 2 of them. I really think that that's a point trap. And so that really leaves you with maybe expert loader, but honestly, I just shoot AP in my battleships all the time. It's far more consistent than HE is. And that leaves you with priority target or incoming fire alert. Of the 2, I think priority target's a little bit better. Both of these skills, I think, are a little wasted, but because we have the point to spare, I'll toss it in one of them. Anyway, those are the 3 builds that I think are probably the most viable for the German battleships. That secondary build, I think, is what 95% of the people are going to end up running. And like I said before, there are other builds around secondaries that you can choose. They're going to require you to give up something in order to get them. For instance, there's a lot of people talking about, well, Demolition Expert now works on the secondaries, so we can add plus 2% to the chance of fire on our secondaries. That's great, but what are you giving up to get it? Think about that before you select it. You're giving up either Superintendent or Vigilance. Is that worth it? It might be to you. To me, I don't think so. But anyway, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. You know, there's so many different ways to build these things. Is there a better build out there that works for you guys? Let me know. I'm interested in trying out some new builds. This is just kind of my off-the-cuff ideas for builds. And that secondary build, you know, I feel like this is the best for me. But what's working for you guys? Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. You guys know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.